Welcome to another Liquid Bullet Productions. Joining me again today is Mr. Albert Patrick. We're going to go into interview number 5. Welcome, Albert.
Correct. Yes, thank you for the welcome. That's 3 years down the road now. Next week, we've been chatting away, so let's crack on.
Yeah. So what new evidence or new stuff has come to light since we last spoke, Albert?
New evidence is a difficult one, but let me explain what we've been doing in relation to the Retina murders. We've been speaking to people who we're keen to. We've still got a list of people who we need to talk to, but the likes of we've spoken to Lizzie Fletcher. She was unfortunately not able to help in relation to the polo that was left at Basil and Tire Company. So not good news there, but she's in a new life. You know, she wants to put it all behind her, and we totally understand that. So that's a negative. We've spoken to Anton Johnson, the landlord of the Orchard Copland. We'll come to that in a second when I talk through the sightings of the victims on the evening of the 6th. You've probably heard of the name Michael Wright. He was the witness who the defence picked up on a long time after the murders and the convictions about 10 or 11 years later. Now, he is adamant that what he said he saw, and he's made a statement to that effect. It's been to the CCRC, who, for want of a better word, say it's plausible, but I'm not taking it any further. So we're going to look at the totality of all the applications by the defence and try and convince the CCRC that this is something that needs to be looked at. We haven't taken a statement from him. The statements that were taken by the CCRC haven't been released, so a bit of a stalemate in relation to that one. We've spoken to people that we haven't spoken to is Paul Edwards. He still hasn't come forward. We understand that he's got a fish and chip shop somewhere in Essex, I think Brentwood some way. So if he's listening, we're keen to talk to him. Mr. Mad Mick Bowman, we know where he's living now, so hopefully we'll be able to arrange a visit to his address very soon. And he's of interest. He's a person of interest. He spoke to Tony Tucker on the night in question, the 6th at 7 minutes past 5. So what does he know? And keen that he will disclose to us what he knows. The key one is obviously William Jasper. William Jasper is out of prison now. We believe he's somewhere in the East End of London. And if he is listening now, can we get this sorted out, please, Billy? We know people who know you. We do believe you have got something to contribute. Your account stacks up in lots of ways for me personally. So we just need some more detail from him. And if he's sent talking a pack of lies and he says he did it to get out of prison, he only got 52 months. So it's not the end of the world. It's not as if he's done a life imprisonment. So if he's listening, Mr. Jasper, please make contact. Who else is there? You fire some names at me, and perhaps it would refresh my memory. So quite a few more. Lots of good policemen in Essex have come forward and told us their thoughts. An officer who was on the protection unit that looked after Nichols said, you know, he was treated like a king. He had a palace to live in the cells, and he was taken out to wherever he wanted to. So my opinion, my honest opinion, is that his evidence was bought and he's hoodwinked, conned the police into believing his account because he was in trouble. You know, he was arrested on suspicion of the murders, possession of drugs, and was obviously concerned about what was going to happen to him.
Yeah,
Who else?
Lied his way to get out of his own sort of trouble, hasn't he?
Yes, we've talked to Carlton Leach. He's an interesting cat. I don't think he knows. He's open and talks quite freely. Does he know more? Never know. You know, he may do. You know, we've talked to Nipper Ellis. He's another one. I've described him already. Did his dad murder Tucker Tatenrolf? I doubt it. And if he did, where's the evidence? There's none. Who else shall we talk about? Interesting. It's, as I said, 3 years down the road, and it's quite difficult to remember everything was done. We've submitted a draft report to the defence team for them. We're not sure just yet if it's going to go to the CCRC, just because it takes so long, and there may be other avenues open to us. And of course, back to Michael Steele himself. He's 80 years of age. He's a category prisoner. He's been locked away for over 27 years. And I'm telling you now, if he did it, there ain't a stitch of evidence that supports Nichols' account. And listen, we can talk all day long about Nichols' account, but that is just uncorroborated garbage from Mr. Nichols. Some of it is true because it did happen, and it's not criminal to get in a boat and drive over to Holland and do lots of other things. But it's sad, and it's disappointing that even the SIO, either Mr. Dibley or Mr. Story, haven't come forward and had a chat with me, talk to me, and say, look, this is what I've uncovered. I've read and read and read and spoken to lots of people, and there's huge concerns about the safety of the convictions in the Retterton murders. So I think I've said enough on introduction, so happy to fire away with the next question, Lee.
Just while we're touching there on Mick Steele, still a Category A prisoner. So why is the reason he's still in a Cat A?
That it's about the risk, isn't it? It's what he's got. He should have had a parole hearing way back in January. The right people, the people who say that he's safe to be released into the community, weren't available to sit around the table and discuss his case. We now believe, or I'm told, because I've spoken to Mick on Zoom only a few weeks ago, that his hearing is coming up in May, when the people who have the experience are available to explain to the parole board. The chair of the parole board was taken back to court because they were running out of judges or running out of barristers. So lots of hiccups for him. And he's a political prisoner. You've got Brunson, who's up very soon, and you've probably got one of the best solicitors dealing with both cases, Dean Kingham. So he's switched on. He knows what he's about. Not my expertise. But why is he Cat A? They don't want him out, do they? Because if he does get off, or we do uncover, and let's wait and see what happens on the Sky programme documentary, and we are getting close to new evidence, which just needs corroboration, and hopefully it will open up that can of worms.
As you just mentioned there about the Sky documentary, can you tell us anything about that at all, or for the viewers?
Yes, listen, it ain't going to be, what's the best way to describe it? It's going to scratch on the surface. It's the opinion of the producers and the directors who put it together. And yes, myself and David have helped in the production of the documentary. Lots of people have been interviewed that are not in there, that in our view are crucial to unveiling to the public what exactly happened in the Retterton murder investigation. So I'm not going to jump to any conclusions just yet. Yes, I've seen a draft. When I say a draft, I've seen the first put together of the three programs, and for me, it will just open up and scratch the surface. So work to be done after the program comes out. We had hoped it was going to come out in January. Yeah, I think now it's going to be Easter, April, May time before the first program comes out. So watch this space. Yes, listen, it's been hard work, and it's been a difficult year and a bit, particularly for David, who's put the energy into helping, but not ideal for what we would have liked. And it doesn't spell out, lots of concerns in Michael's defence and how the case and issues have been addressed in the last 27 years. So let me give you an example. The Orsick pub sightings, where Anton Johnson, there's information into the incident room that the landlord of the Orsick they were seen in his pub and the landlord knew him. I've got the details, but I won't spell it out. That's basically it. Police did go there, but the landlady, I believe, yes, his wife, said he was in America at the time. So there's details there that Essex Police did do something, but not enough for me. We, Jan Austin, a reporter, and David McKelvey have spoken to Anton Johnson, and guess what? Anton Johnson says, yes, I do know Tucker, Tate and Rolfe. They were in my pub the week before, and they were in my pub on the 6th of December, 1995, with one other man. And the key words that he said were, it was getting dark. Well, I've done my homework. I've looked at where Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were in the morning of the 6th and in the early afternoon. And if Mr. Johnson is correct, then the only opportunity those three had with one other man being at the Orchard is between 3:30 and 4 o'clock on the 6th of December. Not 7 o'clock, not 8 o'clock, but it was getting dark. And I watched the darkness on the 6th of December last year, 2022. And guess what? At 3:30, it was getting dark. By 4 o'clock, it was dark. And by 10 minutes past 4, it was dark. So I'm happy that the timing given by Anton Johnson is correct. And he did see Tucker, Tate and Rolfe in his pub. But the three of them would appear to have been in his pub on the 6th. The important thing for me is that only just before that meeting, guess who they were talking to on the phone? Paul Edwards. So was it Paul Edwards that was at the meet at the Orchard Cock between 3:30 and 4 o'clock? We know that after 4 o'clock that Rolfe was seen outside Gray's police station, and we know from the telephone conversations and other witnesses that Tate and Tucker were either at home or doing business elsewhere. But they do come together at 12 minutes past 6 when we've got the telephone showing that, and now Claire Carey saying that she saw them leave 49 Gordon Road. And Andrew Reynolds, who sees them at Cranes Farm Road, just gone 6 o'clock. So that's the last sighting so far, other than others that I will raise in a second, which haven't been mentioned but could be important. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a cop who knows what he's talking about. I've already said, been there, seen there, and done it. That Mr. Raymond Wright, who sees this ranger at the top of the lane, because they could well have been murdered around about midnight. And all those sightings and all those witnesses who said they saw them 7, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, they saw them, but they were alive. Can I just raise, it's important I just read this to you, because this is about Michael Steele, and let me explain what I'm just about to read to you. A prison officer at Belmarsh Prison has made contact, and this is what he has said. And this was on Crime Centre Courtroom last year, 2022, right, here we go, November last year. Congratulations on a very well thought out and considered piece on the character of Michael Steele and his alleged involvement in the Retterton murders with his co-defendant Jack Wilms. I happened to be a prison officer at Belmarsh at this time and was serving a 2-year tour of duty on the Special Security Unit. They were located there on remand up to and including their trial. Your character assessment of Michael Steele is spot on. He is a very intelligent man, and I find it hard to imagine him undertaking such a risky crime with the likes of Darren Nichols. Although I never found Steele to be a physically aggressive man, I do not remember him to be the type of man that would scare easily or be rattled by a group of low-level drug dealers like the so-called Essex boys. Steele was an imposing man by way of his intelligence, within a month of being on remand, he knew the prison rules better than most officers. I remember him always protesting his innocence, which is not unusual with remand prisoners. but when a prisoner still protests his innocence many years after conviction to the point where it affects his chances of parole, then maybe people should start to listen. Crime scene to courtroom say thank you, and the reply, absolutely. He did not suffer fools gladly, whereas Jack Wooms was physically a much larger man, was very quiet and quite happy to keep himself to himself. And here's a man who probably spends every day looking after Stephen Wooms, who has got a fair understanding or a good experience of what inmates in Belmarsh are like. And I sense that as well from the short times I've spoken to him. So the message is simple. Then maybe people should start to listen.
Yeah.
Right, questions. Here we go.
Okie dokie. So if I just mentioned Dennis Wise.
Right, okay, Dennis Wise. That's a pseudonym, or it may be the right name. Now, this is relevant to the Fortune of War public house sighting. And let me just get my notes out on this, because this, I've mentioned it already, but Dennis Wise is the name given or name recorded by D.S. White when he answered the telephone call. And the information is this. Here we go. Right, about 8 o'clock, 200 hours, on the night of the killings, all three were in the Fortune of War pub in Basildon and were with another man who is well known to the landlord. They all left together. So basically, that's a sighting recorded in message 327, and it was allocated to an officer to call at the pub to make inquiries. Well, I can't find any result to that. And we, in my appeal today, is if Dennis Wise recognizes that message, that answer he gave to D.S. White, then we're very keen to talk to him, because if we can show that they're alive at 8 o'clock and a description of who they were with, then that just shuts down Darren Nichols' evidence, because the Crown's case is by 1859, Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were dead. Simple as that. And in relation to the Fortune of War pub, we've also got a lady who visited a pub in Redden, the Bell, and she says she was walking her dog at 10:30, and that she heard the gunshots while she was walking the dog. Arthur, the landlord, yes, he informed the incident room, but the lady has never been found. It's a long shot. So if there was a lady walking a dog in the vicinity of the Bell Public House on the 6th of December around 10:30 p.m., then please get in touch, because we're keen to establish, where she heard the sounds of gunshots. And another very important, this is all new information coming to us, there is also another piece of information where we believe that gunshots were heard around midnight in the locality of the old Windmill Public House, and that the police were called, that a single officer arrived, and he dealt with the incident. Now, we can't, a 999 was called, we understand, but we can't find that officer. So any night duty Essex officer on duty, either based at Chelmsford or Southwood and Ferris Police Station, who took a call to the sound of gunshots being fired around about midnight in South Hanningfield Road, the area of the old Windmill Pub, then we're very keen that he makes contact. So that's another piece of information that's just come in, most certainly recently. So let's fire on with the next question.
Just got a brief summary of the cell site in particular, JAW being in region of Sudbury.
Okay, right. Let me talk about that. The jury, as I understand it, believed that in 1859, Jack Wooms was down the lane and responsible for the assassination of Tucker, Tate and Rolfe. And he called Darren Nichols at 1859 to come and collect him, having been dropped off at the top of the lane. Well, that's the cell site. And if the jury believed that, why is there no mention, or why has nothing been made now or even at the trial? And I don't know, because I haven't necessary and all the facts. At 1712, Jack Williams was within range of the Sudbury cell site, and he, in his alibi, said he was at Willowmere Caravan Park. Now, if you look at the travel time from Willowmere Caravan site to Marks Tay, where Nichols said he arrived shortly after Michael Steele, then you look at the timings that Nichols gave to Essex police officers when they did the rerun of what he said happened on the night in question in June 1996. The timings from Marks Tay to the halfway house is 52 minutes. And the Crown's case is that at 1803 and 1809, Steele is calling Williams, who has to be in the company of Darren Nichols at those two times. And then when you look at the Range Rover's timings and where that was before it may have arrived at the halfway house, the key time, and I've said it in a previous interview, and what Nichols said in his evidence in chief, 1830 or just before, he saw the Range Rover arriving at the halfway house, parked next to Steele's Hilux, and then he and Williams drove off to the crime scene to Rettendon. That took 21 minutes in May 1996. And can I tell you now, I have driven that at least 5 times in the last 3 years, and we've timed it with Sky, and it's between 20 and 21 minutes every time. So that's a fair, reasonable timing to give to that journey. So 20, 21 minutes. That makes him arriving at 1851, 2 minutes walk down the lane to the crime scene, 1853. If you then look at what Nichols says and what the judge told the jury, at 1844, Steele is in the Range Rover as it turns in to the top of the lane, and it's a 1 minute maximum drive down to the 5-bar gate. Well, hang on a sec. That means the Range Rover has arrived at the 5-bar gate before Jack Williams could have got there to shoot them. Doesn't make sense, does it? It's simple. Now, okay, people will say, here we go, Albert, you got it wrong, or this, that, and next, but just have a look at it. Don't take my word. You people out there, you subscribers, do a bit of homework. Yeah, get the Google out, get a loop planner, drive it yourselves, and just see if those times stack up. And don't forget, 1830 or just before, from Nichols in interview, says that's when he saw the Range Rover. And when you look at the Range Rover from 6 o'clock, leaving, picking up Tucker and going to pick up Tate, and then Reynolds at Crane's Farm, and then 1826, they're talking to Paul Edwards, and the cell site is in Langdon, then you know that is also a safe time. And then back up to Sudbury at Willowmere Park, the jigsaw puzzle doesn't fit.
Yeah.
So, that's something else to look at. Not sure if the jury picked up on that. I think the defense, I'm not sure because I honestly don't know. But for me, as a senior investigating officer who would want to corroborate what Nichols has said, I'll be looking at it and say, well, hang on a sec. This doesn't stack up. There's just something not right. And guess what? No inquiries made at the halfway house. No inquiries made at the Hungry Horse where Steele went. And do you honestly believe that Steele's going to get in a Range Rover with Pat Tate, who's allegedly going to be blowing him, has fallen out over a bad cannabis deal, yeah? And he's going to travel 10 minutes from the Hungry Horse to the crime scene. Sorry. Not for me. I'm not convinced. So, I've said enough, but I won't harp on about it, but seriously, I've spent a long time on the whole of it. That's just one example. There are others. So, next question, please.
So, is there any other people of interest that you wish to interview still?
Say again? Sorry.
Is there any other people of interest that you still wish to interview?
Well, yes, there are actually. Obviously, Mick Bowman are going to do soon. We want to talk to Jasper. John McCarthy is interesting. Now, he, if you look at what Donna Jagger said, she's saying that John McCarthy was involved in a cocaine deal with Tate, Tucker and Rolfe on the night in question, and Rat Brown, Mick Bowman. So John McCarthy has never made a statement. I understand he paid for Pat Tate's funeral. So he's never been seen. Statement's never been taken from him. So very keen to see him. There's another man named, and I don't think it's come up before, is Chris Rawl. You know, he's named as being responsible with Paul Edwards. So, and he's from South Africa. So good intelligence about him. Keen to see him. Obviously, there are the Red One. One of the Red Ones is dead, but you know, Tony Redwin, if he wishes to talk to me, I'm very keen to talk to him. And you notice I haven't mentioned the Jasper account very much at all, but I would just like to share with yourself, Lee, and your subscribers. I don't think anybody has ever had this read out to them or been explained in relation to any podcasts or anything. And this is, don't forget, Jasper, as we know, gave evidence at trial. The judge called his evidence hearsay, the totality of his evidence, and he said that he was a getaway driver for Mr. D, and he dropped him off at Rectory Lane around about midnight. At the end of how Jasper was dealt with and sent back to Forest Gate Police Station, Detective Sergeant Sanford did exactly what he should have done, and I applaud him for that. He has submitted R33H, his report in relation to the Jasper account. I'm not going to read it all, but I'm just going to read parts of it to give a feeling as to the end question. What did Essex Police do about the Jasper account? And perhaps I'll let you, Lee, and your subscribers work out the answer. Oh no, I'll say my thoughts anyway. Here we go. Yeah, as I would. It gives a background in relation to how many times he was interviewed and where he was. Forest Gate, Rayleigh Police Station, back to Forest Gate. To summarise, Jasper stated that he had been invited to do some driving by a man named Jesse Gale. Jesse Gale, as you know, was killed in a road traffic accident. A plan was made at a restaurant in Woodford where Jasper would drive a man named named by Jasper as Mr. D. Jasper said the route he took was made at the direction of Mr. D. On the night in question, Jasper, collected Mr. D from Palms Motel on A127 Hainoak, then went to Upminster Windmill Cars. Here, Mr. D walks to the side of the car firm and collects a weapon from Jesse Gale. They both leave in the car a stolen e-registration Fiat Uno coloured grey. Both drive to Rectory Lane, South Woodham. In the lane, Jasper waits for half an hour whilst Mr. D walks across a field out of view. When he returns, Jasper says he has 4K of cocaine in a rucksack. Both leave the scene driving back to Morton's Wine Bar in South Woodford, where a meeting with Jesse Gale takes place and the drugs were passed to him. Jasper was instructed to take the car to the Peacock Gym Cannon Town. Jasper stated that he had purchased this information because he realised that 3 people had been shot. Jasper understood that the plan was to rob them of the drugs. Apparently, the people behind the plan were Patsy Clark, who was owed money by Tucker, and Mr. T, who instigated the plan on his behalf. Whilst in custody, Jasper, off his own back, made a 12-page statement which is attached. Mentioned the name Patsy Clark, and in previous interviews, I admit I got it wrong, because as I dug into the armed robbery, the Group 4 armed robbery that my staff dealt with a couple of years earlier, and we know that people were charged and found not guilty, and that Tucker was actually interviewed by my staff but never charged, that I understood from what Jasper had said in his 12-page document that I've just referred to is that he owed 300 grand to Patsy Clark. That is wrong. Patsy Clark's involvement, if he was involved, was purely in arranging the contract to get the money back. Simple as that. So he wasn't an armed robber. It was nothing to do with the Brinks map. It was definitely Group 4, because when you look into the other intelligence within the summary of intelligence that Essex Police did disclose, you can see that there's other information that supports what Jasper said. So was Jasper telling the truth? I don't know. I would want to ask him. His account is a damn sight more compelling than Nichols', but guess what? Essex Police have not investigated the information, evidence, intelligence in Jasper's account to a professional standard. Now, if actions or messages or policy files have been kept from the defence, and I haven't seen them because that's only case papers that I've been allowed to view, then fair enough. Yeah, let's talk about it and say, Albert, you've got it wrong. But Jasper's account should have been acted upon. He committed an offence of conspiring to deal in Cat A drugs, cocaine, and when you look at it, he was actually conspiring to murder. And there's lots of questions I would want to ask him, and then when I do, then Billy Jasper, do the right thing, talk to me, and officers who know you are keen to talk to you and sort this out once and for all. And if, I won't name that man because it will probably annoy people, something hasn't been done properly, and that is the Jasper account has not been dealt with to a professional standard. Simple as that. Yeah. Next question.
So, Albert, there's reviews concerning the crime scene and possibility that 6 shots could have been taken elsewhere.
Okay, let me talk you through that one. I've been looking at the Range Rover for 3 years now, the photographs. The photographs are poor quality, but just let me highlight some of the concerns that I have got in relation to what the photographs tell me. The first one we can deal with very quickly is that I thought the black mark in the puddle at the rear of the exhaust was carbon, and we're trying to work out how long the Range Rover had been there. I'm totally convinced it's either a black plastic bag or, as pointed out to me, the sacking that farmers use to wrap their hay around, and it just found its way down the lane. So when you look at the angle of the exhaust and you look at the puddle, it doesn't move, it's solid, and it's 99% a plastic bag. End of. No need to go any further, job done. At the side of that, there's a clump of brown snowed up ice, frosted ice, which to me indicates that there's been another vehicle down the lane, and not the farmers, because he'd only just warmed up his vehicle and driven a matter of yards from his farm down to the crime scene. And also on the bank opposite the turning point, there's 2 lines of tire marks that also suggest to me one may be the farmers, but the other one is, in my view, another vehicle that could have been down the lane. The next one is the lack of frost. Now, the lack of frost for me should have been dealt with in an early stage by the investigating team. Stick another vehicle down there and see if it frosts up between 7 and 8 a.m. when the temperature's the same. Even if you've got to wait a year, pick a time when the weather's the same and test Mother Nature to see if there is any frost on the Range Rover. That wasn't done. No temperatures taken, as you know, of the bodies inside or inside the vehicle, or even from the engine's water to see, how long it would take to cool down. So that wasn't done. Not sure why, but that is just not acceptable in my view. When you look at, and bear in mind that the Range Rover was then lifted up onto the back of a low loader with the bodies inside and taken to South Woodham-Ferris police station for further examination. But look at the front shot of the Range Rover. You've got, and I think we've had an expert explain that the shots were fired more than likely from the open offside rear passenger door. And when you look at the shots, have gone through the headrest, 2 shots into Craig Rolfe, and his head has fallen to the left. And you've got 3 shots into Tucker, who's the front seat passenger, whose head falls to the right. Now, this is before it's been taken off to the police station. That's how the bodies were found. And you've got Tate in the back seat, where he's clearly been sitting between the 2 seats, and his head is gone, having been shot in the belly, in the chest, at close range, because the marking is a close range shot, and that would have killed him straight away. And his head is gone against the window, but it's not broken. That makes a total of 2, 3, 4. That's 6 shots at the crime scene. 2 further shots are put into Tate's head from the near side through the rear passenger window that was closed, with glass going into his head, and you've got blood and you've got glass out in the snow. So why go round and shoot Tate through the head, from the outside if he's already dead? So that's a question for me that puts my suspicions up in relation to where they actually killed there. Where they actually killed at the bottom of the lane. And then another one for me is that if you look at Rolfe's position when he's photographed at the police station, his right leg is twisted up, and the right is an automatic, so his right leg is a controlling leg. So why is that twisted up? And his left leg is straight, and if I remember rightly, it's actually on the pedal, which would be the accelerator pedal. And you don't drive with your left leg in automatic. The vehicle is in drive, the ignition is off, and there's a third of a tank of diesel it's petrol in the vehicle. If you look at the driving wheel, there's splattering on the steering wheel, and it's horizontal. Well, blood doesn't fall horizontally, and the position of the steering wheel is not as it was when it was at the crime scene. It was up the other way, when it's moved to get it up onto the low loader and off at the other end. So there's smudging of the blood on the steering wheel that I need a blood pattern analyst to professionally look at the blood in totality within the vehicle. If you look at outside in the snow, you've got a splattering of blood to the right. How did that get there if the guy's standing there with a shotgun? And you've got a small clump of blood tissue almost underneath the rear offside wheel. And then finally, on the tires and on the mud flap, you have got light-coloured soil, which looks a bit sandish to me, if I can use that expression. So, is that something that picked up en route to the bottom of the lane? And the tires, you can see, are much lighter colour up the top. But if you look at the mud flap, there's a fair bit of light-coloured soil, earth, and mud that could be sand. I'm not saying it is, but it could be. I very much doubt if Essex Police took a sample of that. And if you go back to the frost, CCRC engaged a man called Adrian Runacres to examine why there was no frost. Because remember, Peter Theobald, the farmer, had to throw hot water onto his windscreen to get it clear for him to drive. They were briefed on the Crown's case that the vehicle was there from 7 o'clock and found at 8 o'clock, but they were never briefed or told about the defence's case, is that based on the Jasper's account, that they were murdered after midnight and found at 8 o'clock-ish the next morning by Peter Theobald and Mr. Jiggins. So they were never told about that. Would that have made a difference? I don't know. But his final statement was that it was an anomaly and he didn't have an answer to why there was no frost. So that, me looking at the Range Rover, of all those points, when you pull them together, are concerns for me. Could they have been murdered elsewhere and have moved because where they were murdered would have brought to the attention of the investigating team people that could have been responsible. So, you know, that's something that I said almost a year ago that when I was asked that question, no, I didn't think so. But you know, time sometimes changes, and I'm more keen to develop that as best I can. And I need expert people to give me advice. And we'll leave it there for now.
Okay, Albert, thanks for coming on. We've wind that up there, and we're going to a part 6 with the viewers' questions soon.
Certainly, thank you. Thanks for your time.
Albert.
Don't forget, I'm only interested in the truth.